It's time for Inside the Jets, presented by EY, building a better working world. Now, here's Bart Scott and Dan Graca.
And welcome into another edition of Inside the Jets. Dan Graca joined as always by former Jet linebacker Bart Scott. We're brought to you by EY, building a better working world. Bart, what's going on, my friend? How's things?
Doing good, man. I feel much better if this was a victory Monday, but it is what it is. I believe in the process. Yes, I said the P word, process. Some things to build off of, some things that we definitely have to get cleaned up. But all in all, I understand where we're trying to go, and the future, I hope, is bright.
You know, Coach Saleh alluded to that as much yesterday. And as you said, you know, another tough one at the office, 30-9. They fall to the Saints at MetLife Stadium yesterday. They officially are eliminated from the postseason chase for the 11th consecutive year, which is disappointing. I mean, you were on the last two Jet teams to make the playoffs back in 2009 and 2010. I'm sure it seems like a long time ago for you, for a lot of the fans out there, but, you know, you hit on the process. And Coach Saleh mentioned that after the game yesterday, that they have a clear vision, a clear plan of where this program is going. A lot of young guys are getting experience right now. Maybe it's not producing the results that a lot of fans want to see, but eventually it's going to get there, and you hope that it's going to be pretty special.
But it's the second year in a row that, you know, this young core of young players, now granted under a different regime, has gotten experience to build the back end of the roster. You know, eventually you're going to have to be able to rely on some teams and some people and understand that this league is all about depth. And, you know, the Jets were built to compete this year from their front end starters. But once those guys start going down, the replacements didn't have the football acumen or the experience to be able to hold up the standard. Now, they're trying and fighting as best they can, but it's just tough sledding right now. And they have to figure out how to continue to get better, how to develop your quarterback. And it's tough because you talk about a young core, you know, it's missing Mekhi Becton, it's missing Michael Carter, it's missing Elijah Moore, is missing Corey Davis, which is those are 4 people out of 11 people that's supposed to be on the field that are out that are supposed to be part of the solution.
You're absolutely right about that. I mean, and then you could also go on the defensive side of the ball, and there's going to be a lot of names over there as well that, you know, aren't part of the plan as we speak because they're on injured reserve. I saw a story earlier in the week. I can't remember the exact figure, but the Jets have the largest percentage of salary cap on injured reserve right now compared to any other team in the National Football League. So to your point, I mean, look, I understand the good teams and the winning teams have depth and they make sure that they have a nice complement of players on their roster. But to your point, the front end talent on this football team that we relied so much on going into the season, that if the Jets were going to be a winning team, you had to rely on these guys. If they're not out there on the field, that means it's a lot of youth, it's a lot of inexperience. And I think you're seeing some of those warts present themselves now on Sundays.
Absolutely, and that's just the frustrating part. That's why you keep the standard. You try and teach the ones that you can and say, hey, the ones who stay will be champions, right? We understand that every year is 35% turnover on a roster, and you have to figure things out. You want to say, hey, let's finish strong. It's all about developing Zach Wilson. You hope that maybe Elijah Moore, he's on IR, so he's not scheduled or able to come back.
At least 2 more games, yeah.
So it's just one of those things, right? You just do what you can. And it's like that sometimes. You see a team like the Baltimore Ravens seemingly running out of bodies. But the Jets have ran out of bodies because they didn't have as many bodies as a lot of teams because you're at the beginning of this regime. This year's draft, this year's free agency is going to be very, very vital and key to being able to establish some more depth so that if you experience losses, you can be able to absorb them, because in the NFL, nobody's going to have a clean year. Everybody's had their adversity. And unfortunately, the Jets have had their adversity, you know, first on the defensive side of the ball. You talk about losing your 2 starting safeties, then losing your starting linebacker for a long period of time, and Davis being hurt, and also losing your best pass rusher, your offseason acquisition. Those are 4 important parts. You talk about, if you want to break it down to anybody that does math, that's 1/3 of what you anticipate in being a key part in the impact of your defense gone. Then you do that on the offensive side, and then you don't have those people. I mean, Walters is a great story, but I mean, he wasn't even, nobody even knew who he was a couple of weeks ago. And now you have a lot of young guys playing, like Solid said yesterday, that you didn't even intend to play. They didn't expect to play. And now you're trying to coach them up. But at the end of the day, they weren't going to be relied on because they weren't ready yet or they weren't talented enough to be put in that position. But, that's the NFL. A lot of teams are experiencing the same thing.
No, you're right about that. I mean, think about it even in the secondary with the corner position, right? It's all first and second year guys that are playing the cornerback spot. And that, they're getting valuable reps, valuable experience. And you're seeing that some of these guys are going to probably blossom into some good players, but it's a lot being thrown on their plate as is right now. And you just hope that, you brought up the draft, for example. You think about where the Jets stand right now. They got 2 first-round picks, 2 second-round picks in this upcoming draft. If you want to go by the 2021 draft, I mean, think of how much talent that has produced already. And these guys are going to get only better. You ran down some of those names. So you got to be excited about that. Got a lot of draft capital. You got a lot of cap space in the offseason. So it's continuing to build upon, what this team already did and outlined this year. Take the young guys, maybe fortify it with some veteran leadership and free agency, add more youth to it with the draft. This thing could turn around in a hurry, but unfortunately, you're going to run into a game like yesterday, Bart, where it's just not enough quality bodies going up against the opposition. And you had a team that was only able to produce 9 points and seemed like they ran out of gas a little bit on defense. And look, New Orleans really wasn't going to trick you too much. That they had a quarterback who was thrown with a bad finger. The passing game is not really his strong suit anyway in Taysom Hill. And they kept running and running and running. And eventually, that dam burst a little bit in the second half. And that's how the Saints were able to churn out a victory.
Well, Alvin Kamara is one of the special talents in this league. And he can make a completely healthy team look silly, right? And being able to have Ramczyk and Armstead back made them even more of a adversary, right? More of a qualified opponent, right? And they were able to do just enough and understand. See, this is the thing. They know who they are, right? They know who they are. The Jets are trying to discover who they are as a team and as an organization and as a program. So even when you have a team where you know who you are, much like when you watch the Ravens, when you look at the backup go in, nobody panics because they know who they are, right? Because they've had an opportunity to develop and establish their identity. So it's easier. But when you have a new program, this was a team that was built for the better part of a decade to be a 3-4 team.
Right.
You don't have. Right. Understanding the techniques, understanding being around, having those techniques beat into your head, understanding how you see certain fronts. So now, you got to continue to bring guys that fit your program. And you can't just come in and say, okay, let's get rid of everybody that was here before. You have to figure out who you can stay with, who you can. I mean, I remember when I came in, you had Abe Elam, let him go. We had a couple of defensive linemen, let them go. And Rex cleaned out shop a little bit to bring in players that fit his type. And I think Saleh's trying to figure out what type of receivers he wants to fit his type. Trying to figure out, this year really not getting a lot of productivity from the tight end position. Understand that now the tight end position is a glamour position in this league. You have to have a tight end that's capable of putting up 700 to 1,000 yards in productivity. They're struggling in that department. They have to figure out a way to get more out of that spot. And, it's a work in progress.
No doubt about it. Speaking of a work in progress, though, one of those afternoons for the quarterback as well. So let's hear from Zach Wilson, who after the game caught up with our play-by-play guy, Bob Wischusen.
Zach, why the struggles today? When you look back on this game, what do you think you're going to see?
Just not executing. That's really all it comes down to. I got to make better throws. We got to establish some drives, get going. Defense did a good job holding them up, gave us a lot of opportunities, and we got to take advantage of it on offense.
When you miss some of the simpler throws, for you, is that technique? Is it between your ears? Like when you go back and you look at the game and you say, all right, I missed a wide receiver screen. Like, explain to a fan that's watching that and is confused where that comes from.
Yeah, I mean, that one just slipped off my hand. I got to be able just to move on from those and just trust it, just let it rip. That's really all it comes down to.
How much did you miss Corey, Elijah? I mean, obviously, those are your number one and number two receivers. How is this offense different for you when those guys are there?
Yeah, no, it should be no different. I thought the guys today were ready for the opportunity to step up. I got to give them, some better throws, put them in some better situations. And, obviously it'd be nice to have those guys out, but this is how the NFL goes. Next guy up, and I thought they did a good job. I got to give them some better throws.
All right, thanks for the time. Appreciate it. All right.
Thanks.
All right, thanks a lot, guys. Really appreciate it. And we are brought to you by Selective Insurance. Be uniquely insured. Some positive injury news, Bart, coming out of Coach Saleh on Monday, as a matter of fact, that the Jets are going to get a few more reinforcements, it looks like, for this game against the Miami Dolphins coming up on Sunday. Tyler Kroft, Tevin Coleman, Bryce Huff, along with both Michael Carter's offense and defense, all should be back for this game against the Miami Dolphins on Sunday, which certainly would be much appreciated on both sides of the football.
Oh, that's great, right? Because what you want to do is you want to sell hope, and you want to give the fan base something to root for. You want to let them see what this team looks like with reinforcements, with guys that are figuring it out. Michael Carter continue to be. I think Michael Carter and Elijah Moore, for my money, before Michael Carter got hurt, was going neck and neck for me for offensive impact. Right? You can throw Vera Tucker in there as well, but we always know that it doesn't really usually go to the deep offensive lineman. As far as most impressive rookies outside of, Tucker was going to be like those two. Like that shows you that you hit on three, pieces on the offensive side of the ball, right? And understanding with all the draft capital, it sells hope to the fan base. Like, man, we get another three, then that's six, right? That's six guys that we expect to be able to contribute. And on the defensive side, Michael Carter has been everything that we thought he would be, I think, and more. I think he's been as surprising to me as Hall was last year. Now, we knew Hall was a first-round, caliber player that just had injuries in college and he had to get healthy. But, man, Michael Carter's been tremendous in that slot, which is one of the hardest places to play. You can't – I don't recall any games where you can say, hey, man, this guy just looks like he's overmatched, outmatched, and he looks lost out there. So that's tremendous. And I think that, when you think about going to play a divisional opponent, you want to make sure that you represent yourself well in their house. They came to your house and got the job done. You want to go in their house and return the favor.
And, you think about the Dolphin game, too. Joe Flacco played the game at MetLife Stadium. Zach Wilson was still on the sidelines with the injury. So now Zach is going to have an opportunity to play against Miami. And when you talk about the rookie class and the young players, let's not forget, if he pans out like everybody in the organization hopes he will, it goes back to what we talked about earlier, Bart. This 2021 draft class has a chance to really set this program off on a trajectory, which you hope is going to carry them to a lot of winning seasons in the future.
Absolutely, right? We talk about foundation and pouring the foundation, right? A house can't stand without a good, solid foundation. And continue to build this offensive line, bring quality depth in. You brought high character guys in, McGovern, Duvernay, Morgan, Moses. These are guys that are, high caliber character guys, right? So you understand when things are tough, it's the character that still allows you to come to work and play well, practice well, and be a leader. And they have that, right? You talk about the veteran leadership of guys like C.J. Mosley. Eventually, you're going to get reinforcements, you're going to have talent, but if you don't have the character, you're going to have all the talent you want, because the talent sets the floor, the character sets the ceiling. And if the talent to come and the development to come, experience, and being able to be in moments, be able to have communication, go through things together, mess up, doing well, go into meeting rooms, and then have to talk about how they supposed to see it. I tell people all the time, a veteran is not because he hasn't made mistakes. Is that he's made all the mistakes. He just doesn't make them twice, and he's been able to grow from his mistakes. Whether you make those mistakes in the game, whether you make them in practice, it's unique things that come up in situations where, you don't have the experience. You've never, been in that position before. You have to be able to use the tools in your tool belt and know which ones to pull out to give you a better chance to get the desired outcome.
No doubt about it here. Talking about experience, a guy who's already had a couple of years' experience as the Jets center, that's Connor McGovern. He's going to join us coming up next here on Inside the Jets. Dan Graca, Bart Scott. We're brought to you by EY, building a better working world. And welcome back to Inside the Jets. Dan Graca alongside Bart Scott. And we're joined now by Connor McGovern of the New York Jets, their starting center. And it's our player guest segment brought to you by EY, building a better working world. Connor, it's Dan and Bart. Thanks for joining us today, my friend. How are you?
Good. How are you guys? Thanks for having me.
Pleasure. Now, coming into this season, I understand you guys are going to have a young quarterback, but also a new left tackle, a new left guard, Fant coming in, Morgan Moses. How you guys gelling, and is the nonverbal communication, kind of picking up? Are you guys starting to have that nonverbal communication where you see fronts and blitzes the same?
Yeah, for sure. It's something that we've gotten better at as the years gone on, and I'd say the cohesion in this room and the continuity is definitely one of the highest in a room I've been around. It's not like there's two guys hanging out here, a couple guys there. We're all really close. We're in the old line room like 10, 15 minutes before every day, and we just sit and kind of shoot, for lack of better term, and just kind of just hang out, and we've really gotten to know each other really well. Something we didn't really get to do last year because of COVID, and then we obviously added a bunch of new faces again this year, and it's been a good year. It's definitely the closest knit room I've been around, and that does translate on the field. That the nonverbal stuff, the really understanding where a guy is going to be, if you're sliding and you're getting this look, I kind of know exactly where everybody's going to be. So it makes picking things up easier. It makes passing off twists easier. I think last year we were probably the worst offense line at passing off twists, and this year, we've been doing, in my opinion, a really good job of it. We get beat by a twist here or there, but for the most part, it looks pretty smooth, and I think that's kind of what, when you talk about understanding and really understanding where a guy's going to be, exactly where someone's going to set, and that makes passing off twists and games and blitzes a lot easier.
How has the adjustment been to kind of moving from seemingly, and correct me if I'm out of school, as far as the gap scheme kind of that you guys kind of had last year, to more of a zone scheme and more of an east and west type of scheme? How's that adjustment with the guys? You got a lot of young guys. Becton's not playing right now, but kind of he seemed to flourish in the gap scheme. What's the difference? Explain to our listeners what the difference in going with a gap scheme or moving from a gap scheme to a zone scheme.
Yeah, gap scheme, it's a lot more downhill. It's really just, I'd compare it more to like, you're just a bulldozer in a gap scheme. It definitely helps the bigger guy a little bit more than the smaller guy. For an offensive lineman, you can range from 6'3", 285 nowadays is a little small, but like 290, 295 to you got big back at like 6'8", 380. So a guy at back size that doesn't have back athleticism, it'd be really hard for him to do the zone scheme, which now you're more of you're running off the ball, you're using your presence off the ball of like speed and stuff to open up gaps instead of just physically moving people out of gaps. So I'm not the biggest guy in the world, but I like to think I'm pretty athletic, so I fit the zone scheme much better than the gap scheme. It's kind of what got me noticed in Denver. We were in this tree that year, the West Coast tree, and so I was pretty fired up that we were going to go back to this. But yeah, this scheme really favors the athlete over the true bulldozer. And it's in my opinion, it's how I like to get a defense to move, because there's a lot more play pass, a lot more keepers and boots and movements that come off the zone scheme in the gap. Don't get me wrong, there's some pretty good play pass off the gap, but I would say the range and what you're able to do in the play pass off of zone is much higher than off gap, and so that's kind of what this comes from. And I mean, you can hit a huge run on a gap scheme, but you get those runs that look really pretty and hit for 40 a lot more times than not come off of a zone scheme, and the back making a great cut and taking it long. So personally, I'm in favor of the zone scheme over gap, but we hit a gap run last week or this last Sunday for a nice little 14 yards. So you did complement each other, but we definitely are heavy zone now.
Bart was just talking about trying to integrate all these new faces on the offensive line and for you guys to come together. I'm curious, what's the biggest challenge, if any, Connor? You've had to play with 4 different quarterbacks this season, trying to get acclimated to their tendencies. Each and every one is different there. What type of challenges does that present as a guy whose job it is to snap the ball to the quarterback, among other things, to get the play started?
It is a challenge. It's a little bit of a challenge. Everybody, their huddle presence is a little different. Some of those play calls are long, and you got to be able to pick up on every little detail in those. So that it challenges your listening skills, and some people might not think listening, it just comes natural, but it's a skill, especially with with the bullets flying in a game. It can really test your listening skills, and you get into somebody's rhythm, whether that's cadence or huddle, and then it's a little bit of a change up. You got to remind guys like, hey, like I know Flacco has a little bit more of a slower cadence than Zach and Mike White. So that game where Mike got hurt and Flack had to come in, he comes to the huddle, and before he said to the player, like, hey, give us a sample of your cadence really quick. And so that way when, we get to the line of scrimmage and everybody's antsy, you don't get that false start. So it's a little bit of a challenge, but it's a great practice to work on your listening skills.
So going forward, right, and understanding that I've been part of seasons like this. It's about staying together and being able to every week or every time you go out on practice, having something that we're going to get better at as an individual and as a group. You being one of the veterans in that room, what's the focus for the offensive line? Because we're all a team, but we're subgroups first, and we take pride in our position group before we get to our side of the ball or unit. So what's been the focus in the offensive line room as far as making sure that you finish strong?
Yeah, you hit it exactly. Every day, our goal is to pick out 1 or 2 things and get better at that. And as an offensive line, the big thing for us, it's been, taking your shot. Everybody in this offensive line is super detail oriented, but it almost to a fault. We want to be perfect, but football isn't perfect. So you got to just be able to, strain for those extra couple yards. And you might not, be perfect. And I know this is one of my biggest things is just because I'm not perfect, I can't slow down worrying about being perfect. And I think as an offensive line, we're really getting over that and really training for that extra 2 or 3 yards. And at the end of the day, that extra strain at the top of at the very end of the play, just playing football instead of worrying about being perfect. It's kind of helped us, and the games where we're really straining for those extra couple of yards of the games, the offense looks a little better than when we're not doing that. So as a whole team, it's just focus on those little details, and a lot more football games are lost than won, and we're really focusing on those little details so we can win football games instead of lose football games with self-inflicted wounds, if that makes sense.
No doubt about it. Connor, hang on tight 1 sec. We're going to come right back and have more with the Jets Center right after this. It's Inside the Jets, presented by EY, building a better working world. All right, welcome back to Inside the Jets and our player guest segment brought to you by EY, building a better working world. We're chatting with Jets Center Connor McGovern. Before you came to New York, Connor, you were a member of the Denver Broncos, and one of your teammates out there, Demaryius Thomas, who was a Jet here for 1 season in 2019, he tragically passed away last week. And for those of us who just got to know him a little bit, he was always such a great guy to be around, aside from the fact that he was an unbelievable football player. But, what are some of your memories of playing with DT over there with the Broncos?
I think I could fill this whole show up with memories about DT. But a couple of my favorites are, the first day on the Broncos. I think, rookies were supposed to report at like 3:30 p.m. or something. And the type of guy, I'm just like sitting around waiting for something, the anxiety builds. So I was like, screw it. I'm going into the facilities. I'm sure I can do something there. So I show up at like 10 a.m. So I'm sitting there in the locker room, like the team, the director of player personnel, who's like in charge of the rookies, Ray Jack, who's also a phenomenal guy, is like, well, I don't really have anything for you to do, so just hang out, and the other rookies will be here in like 4 or 5 hours. So I was like, okay. So I'm just sitting in the locker by myself. Everybody else is in meetings and doing stuff in OTAs, and the wide receivers get out of meetings first, and DT sees me sitting there by myself, a low round draft pick, and he comes up, he shakes my hand. He's like, "How's it going? I'm Demaryius Thomas." I'm sure my eyes were as big as dinner plates because he's a Hall of Fame player, and I'm like, "Well, I'm Connor McGovern." I'm he's like, "Oh yeah," and he's like, "If you need anything, let me know." He's like, "Happy to have you on the team." I was like, "DT knows who I kind of thing," and and I was like, "Man, he's it's really cool." And so he's the type of guy that, like, when you go to the NFL, people, you're a rookie, and people are always asking, like, "Oh, what's the NFL like? How are the guys in the locker room?" And when I was a rookie, it was always DTs. Demaryius Thomas. You get guys like him who are just phenomenal people. They're superstar players, but they're so humble. They're down to earth. They treat you like you're equals or whatever. And he and I had a really good relationship. He was way into cars, and I am as well. And my rookie year, definitely didn't have the money to buy anything cool, and so I would sit and he'd drive something to the facilities, and I'll never forget his Chevelle. He had a Chevelle, and I think it was a C10. They're both like gunmetal gray. Both had LS, supercharged LSs, and I thought they were the coolest things ever. And he'd drive them, and I'd sit there and be staring at them, and he would come out of the building, and he'd open the hood and the doors, and let me sit in it and hear it, and we'd go to all line dinners, and he'd always come to all line dinners, and he would sit there, and we'd sit next to each other and talk about cars. And especially my rookie year, got to live very vicariously through him, and because he pretty much had some of my dream cars, and he always took the time to answer any of my questions and let me live vicariously through that. And like I said, I have a million stories, but yeah, it was a tough loss. And Thursday morning, woke up to some text messages, and I had some phone calls Thursday night with some some teammates to talk about it. So yeah, it's a guy that definitely won't be forgotten, and a guy that every NFL player should strive to be. Just so humble. He was phenomenal. He treated everybody's kids. One thing I always noticed just observing is how he treated other players' kids like his own. He was a phenomenal human, and definitely a guy that anybody that played with, to carry his legacy on and treat people the way that DT treated people is you'll be doing pretty good in life.
I'll tell you what, his leg on through you guys, man, continues to tell everybody what a great person he was. A lot of times people just see us as athletes and they see what we do on the field, but from everything, tremendous guy off the field. So his legacy lives on, and it's tragic news, and it's always tough when you lose a teammate. Myself as well, losing Joe McKnight, when he played, and that hit the Jets family very hard. So all we can do is make sure that we continue to check on each other, man, and make sure that nobody knows his time or hour on this earth, but making sure that we stay with each other. It's a reminder to make sure that you check on your strong friends as well, man, and make sure that we keep up on our health. And, as you're not there yet, but I'm a retired player, and the last thing that you want to do is go to the doctor and get physicals and get stuff checked on, when you leave. So, hopefully we can take Demaryius Thomas and use that as a beacon of light to continue to be better people, because he was definitely one in a million.
For sure, he's definitely one of the best people I've ever been around. So, for sure.
Did you ever go ahead and get that car? Did you get a Chevelle of your own yet, or what?
I didn't get a Chevelle, but I got a GTO Judge. So I got the Pontiac version of a Chevelle. Yeah, it's carousel red. I got the. No, I got the. I put a. I went on. I was a. Because of Demaryius and his. I was a huge Resto Mod guy, so it wasn't. I found one that wasn't numbers matching, so I put a supercharged LS in it and a Tremec 6-speed, and so it drives like a normal car, but it looks, or a modern car, but it looks like a GTO Judge. And he might have, when I signed here, I texted him. I was like, "Hey, do do you have any of your Chevelle, or do you have your Chevelle or any of your trucks out here? Because, I'm coming. Like, if you got yours, I'll bring my Judge out. He was like, oh, I don't have it out here, and he's like, I'm not sure if I'm going to be here or not. Where it's kind of 50-50 right now. So I didn't end up bringing it, but yeah, I did build a car fairly similar to his, and one that I'd always dreamed about. So
cool.
Just so you know, it's a place in Old English Town where you can take it to the drag strip. Just so you know, just saying.
All right, I might have to bring it out and do that.
I had Eleanor. I got rid of it because I didn't. Mine was like numbers matching, but I got tired of having, you got a generator all the time, and if you don't drive it, they sit. It's the old gas and stuff like that, man. But if I ever do it again, I'm just gonna go straight resto mod. I'm just gonna go straight resto, because you don't want to deal with the old school problems.
Yeah, that's what DT kind of impressed on me. He was like, hey, every time you turn that key, she's going to fire right up, because it's like a brand new car. So, yeah, for sure. I recommend it. Eleanor's beautiful, but I stick to the resto mods just for ease. And, right now it's sitting back home in North Dakota on a trickle charger waiting for the snow to melt out there. So, yeah, those are awesome.
Last year you played through some injuries and gutted it out and still able to finish the season and whatnot. How about this year? With 4 games still to go in the season, now you're going to throw an extra game on top of it with the 17th one. But how do you feel physically with a quarter of the season still to play, Connor?
Definitely better than last year. Battling a hamstring last year, but in some odd bumps and bruises last year. It was kind of one of those years for me, and just weird stuff was kind of happening. But this year, I feel pretty good. And, just being an offensive lineman, you have the random bumper bruise or whatever. But overall, definitely feeling, that kind of, all to my peak health. And so, just looking forward to keep growing and keep trying to do whatever I can to help the team get better. It's something that, when you're knocked out of the playoffs, some people will be like, oh, well, you should probably just, rest and take it easy for next year. I was like, well, the moment you do that, you're not going to be playing next year. So, these last games are extremely important when you talk about, in my opinion, about changing the culture, doing whatever you can to bring the winning culture to an organization. And so, and obviously also, improving yourself. There's no better way to improve yourself than playing on Sunday. So, I really look forward to, keep trying to, bring my best every day and keep doing whatever I can to get better and to finish the season as strong as possible. And by doing that, hopefully we can turn this thing around and put us on a springboard for next year and give you, some games to really build on and use it to have a phenomenal season next year.
Oh, Bart, I was just going to say, I'm curious, what kind of conversations do you guys have in that offensive line room? Because for my money, you guys as an offensive line might be the smartest offensive line room in the entire league. When you consider you got some intelligent dudes in there like yourself. I mean, GVR is an Ivy League guy. LDT is a doctor, for crying out loud. I mean, so what are some of those conversations that are going on in the O-line room?
We have some really good conversations. We have a very fun, interesting mixed bag. We got a doctor, we got an Ivy Leaguer. Morgan Moses will tell you, Virginia is about one school away from being an Ivy League school. So you got some great personalities, some really smart guys, and it's a good time. And like I said, I mean, we truly enjoy being around each other, and we truly enjoy, going to work every day. And it helps when you have a room like that, I'm sure everybody, has had jobs where they really enjoy their coworkers, and some jobs where they're not huge fans. So the fact that we all get along so well, the fact that, we just mesh really well, and it's pretty high level sarcasm for the most part, and fun little jabs here or there. And you definitely gotta bring your best wits every day to the O-line room, and we have a good time. But in doing that, it makes us have more fun, so we can use that to get better every day. It's a lot easier to go and give your best every day when you're in a good mood, you're having fun. You can laugh and joke, and then we're all pretty good at locking in when it's time to be serious. So yeah, it's a fun time for sure.
I'm sure a lot of crypto NFT talk going on in there right now.
There has been a little bit.
I wonder what's the conversation this week like, because Miami's a unique place to play, and it's even more unique when you have to play in November and December when where you're living is 50 degrees cooler than where you're about to go. And it's fun when you get off the plane, it's sunny, but then you feel that humidity and you start coursing yourself. Have you guys started drinking the Pedialyte and pickle juice already, or what's the plans to make sure?
Yeah. I think we've already started hydrating obviously last game, Big Mo, like for a large human, he just doesn't sweat. And so you're like, that's crazy, but you're going to go down to Miami and you're going to be leaking. So we're definitely trying to rehydrate from the last game. And you saw Big George, he comes from a basketball background. So he had the thermals on this last weekend and had a jacket on the sidelines. I'm a little bit more cold-blooded and being from North Dakota, so I was in my normal stuff, but it's kind of funny. You do go from that, and then you go to either an indoor stadium or you go to Miami, and that 10-play drive you had, like what we had on Sunday, and then if you have the exact same drive in Miami, you're going to be definitely a lot more tired. And I remember in Indy, we had like a 14, a 15, and a 16 or something like that, like 3 drives in a row, and we were all like dying, and we're like, what's going on? We're like, oh yeah, we're in an indoor stadium where it's a lot warmer than what we've been playing and practicing in the last couple of weeks. So that is definitely an element. You get off the plane, you're like, wow, this feels pretty good. And then you get in the game, and all of a sudden that oxygen mask and those water bottles look a little bit more tempting than they did the week before. So.
Have you found some time to get some Christmas shopping in? I mean, it's got to be tough, during the football season with all the commitments you have for work. Do you find time to get that in? Is it all just online and you take care of it that way?
Yeah, I mean, you end up ordering a lot more stuff online, a little Amazon here or there. But being in New York, it makes shopping a little bit easier. Jersey, being so close to the city. Big George actually had a really cool fundraiser with Saks. So I know a lot of guys got some of their Christmas shopping done and got to help George's for the FAMP Foundation out doing that. So been trying to sneak it in here or there. So I got the O-line gift exchange coming up. So I've been working hard on finding a clever gift for that. So
you got to come through.
What's up with the rookie? What's up with the rookie party? What's up with that? And what's the budget?
We've actually we were pretty nice to Beck last year, and obviously it was with COVID and stuff, so that we couldn't really go that hard. But AVT's been a really good rookie, so I don't think the rookie tax will be too high on that. But we're saving that for the night after the season to have a good time on AVT's bill. So. That'll happen right after the season, but he's been a good rookie. So that's kind of how I always have gauged it. If you're a good rookie, your rookie dinner or party won't be quite as bad. If you lack on the rookie duties throughout the year, then your bill will reflect that. So he's been a great rookie. So I won't tax him too bad. What's that?
The chicken's always hot and on time, then I take it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He's got we've had some of the best donuts these Saturday mornings. The donut, when your Saturday morning donuts are showing up hot, you're doing something right as a rookie. So, yeah, he's been good.
Gotta have him fresh.
Gotta have him fresh. Yeah, when they're that fresh, it's hard to have any complaints when they're that fresh. So.
No doubt about it. Hey, Connor, thanks for a couple of minutes here on your off day. Really appreciate you spending some time with us. Best of luck against the Dolphins here and for the rest of the season, but we always enjoy catching up with you. Thanks again, my friend.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
All right, that is Connor McGovern for joining us. More to do coming up here on Inside the Jets, presented by EY, building a better working world. And welcome back to Inside the Jets. Dan Graca and Bart Scott. We're brought to you by EY, building a better working world. And remember, Jets fans, you can watch Inside the Jets through the Jets app presented by Fubo Sportsbook. Go to the App Store or Google Play right now and search official New York Jets. There was a lot of good games yesterday, in terms of the hype when you looked at the schedule, but a couple in particular in that late afternoon window. San Francisco-Cincinnati game, which went into OT. And then you had the Buffalo-Tampa game, also in OT. And it's a former Jet who plays the role of hero in Brashad Perryman with a walk-off touchdown from Tom Brady there in the OT. But really, both of them outstanding games. And those are the games as you're on the losing side, Bart, you hate to lose.
Well, absolutely. I think, if you want to start with the Buffalo-Tampa game, it looked like it was going to be a laugher. This is a team that really couldn't stop stop the oil stop the water from flooding the boat. But then they showed us something in the second half, all the way to come back and go into overtime. Whether you want to talk about was that pass interference in the end zone or not, it is what it is. You got to find ways to win this game. And all of a sudden, the Buffalo Bills find themselves, holding on for dear life to make it to the postseason. Tampa looks as dominant as ever, like they're finally getting their stride. Tom Brady, you talk about Brashad Perriman, it's like crazy seeing a former Jet who most people probably didn't even know was on the roster.
That's
comes
right.
in a pivotal time. And that just shows you like the depth of talent. That's what we're talking about because, if I ask you to name the receivers for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Brashad Perriman, you might name 15 people or 10 people before you even get to him. Like, you go Scotty Miller, you go Godwin, you go Evans, you go OJ, the Juice Man, you go Brait, you go Gronk. You still. Oh wow, they have Brashad Perriman as well. And, you go Antonio Brown, and that's what we're kind of talking about when you talk about building depth, right? The depth of talent, right? Not that big of a drop off from 1A to 1B to 1C or whatever you want to call it, and it's just an indication of what you're trying to build towards. But, you talk about exciting games. Now Buffalo coming down to all these divisional games at the end of the month. They done us a great job. So, like now, it makes that Indianapolis, if the Patriots can beat Indy, then it almost pushes the division out of Buffalo's grasp, and it makes that game amongst each other a must-win. And in Gillette, but under right conditions. We knew Advantage, really favored the Patriots once we saw the elements when they had to play in their first matchup. And then to go to, the Bengals and, who's holding on, who falls to third in their division with a loss. Baltimore loses, but, Cincinnati loses as well. But because Cleveland beat Cincinnati, it actually put Cincinnati in third in the division. So now that what we love is pressure bust pipes. And we're coming down to the stretch where every game, every play is important, where the playoffs start far before the playoffs actually start because every game is a must-win and teams have to go into must-win mode. And the San Francisco 49ers are one of those teams. But also, much like the AFC version of the Indianapolis Colts, the San Francisco 49ers is that team that if they get in the pro season, nobody wants to play. They had injuries early on, but nobody wants to see Deebo Samuels, who's leading the league in rushing as a receiver, who now, if you have to ask what his position is, you just say slash, because he's also, leading the league in touchdown receptions as well. So what a year he's having. He's probably one of the, this year, he's probably one of the top 10 players in the game in football, period, let alone receiver. Him and Cordell Patterson, man, they're doing ever seen.
Oh, yeah. Cordero Patterson for the Falcons is having a phenomenal season. And it's all about opportunity. You know what I mean? It's like you take, and I think that coaching goes a little bit hand in hand with that. It's you identify a talent. You don't peg them necessarily into one position. If they're a playmaker on offense, if they're explosive, they could do something, put the ball in their hands. Like, you mentioned Patterson. Patterson, he's essentially acting as a running back. He could return kicks for you. He could be a wide receiver. Just get this guy the ball in space and let him go and do his thing, and it helps the football team.
Well, that takes a very mature coach, right? Because you have to say, don't tell me what he can't do, tell me what he can do, and put him in positions to do that and for us to use it, right? And because, everybody has a skill set. Everybody that gets to the league is good and unique at something. You put them in a position to do that, and you can get benefits. Because just think about the people, Minnesota drafted Cordell Patterson. Never could get the full potential. And it took a guy like Arthur Smith to be able to unlock all his talents. And it's very rare that you see somebody 7-8 years in the league, becoming an all-pro. You know what I'm saying? Or become the pro, or being
As
able
a
to have the
journeyman.
best year. That's good. Exactly. With the Bears and kind of bouncing around. And, he can play at this level for quite a few years. And, it's exciting. It's great to see, right? Because we're starting to get to, I believe, the position in football where it is in basketball. When you talk about positionless players, what is he? He's an offensive threat, right? We see that with Pitts playing receiver / tight end. We see that with Samuels. We see that, sometimes with sometimes with Elijah Moore, we see that. So it's exciting to see.
That's why when they drafted Moore, I kind of thought Deebo Samuel from that San Francisco Shanahan offense that we're incorporating here with Mike LaFleur still could come true. And, of course, Elijah was making strides before he got injured there. Inside the Jets, brought to you by DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app today and use code GREEN for a special offer when you sign up. It's only at DraftKings Sportsbook. Bart, back to the division this week. It's Miami Dolphins down in South Beach. Always a rivalry game. We'll do this again next week, my friend. Enjoy the game.
Look forward to it.
All right. He's Bart Scott. I'm Dan Graca. Thanks for joining us again here on Inside the Jets, presented by EY, building a better working world. So long, everybody.